my position just started getting lit up. I'm in the open, and I have rocks hitting me, dirt hitting me, the snaps, the cracks. Our snipers kind of regain their position. He says to me, hey, I see some movement in that building over there. And he said, can I put a couple rounds in it? He had a 50 cal Barrett sniper rifle. I was like, go ahead, man, do it. And so he just put maybe 5-6 rounds into that building where he thought he saw movement. And again, rules of engagement, we're supposed to go sweep that building now.
Right.
We didn't.
That deployment, you get back, and like many other warriors, you battled.
I battled big time, man, and it wasn't even, for me being shot at, it didn't scare me. In the sense, like, in the moment it did, but it wasn't something I looked back at and was like, this bothers me. For me, it was like an adrenaline rush in the same way that being on a roller coaster was an adrenaline rush. For me, it was like seeing people killed, seeing the body in just unnatural state, and that's the stuff that bothered me when I first got home, and for me, it was probably 8 months straight of just drinking. And it's never too late, man. You can always be better. Thought to myself so many different times that, like, look, man, you might want to just call it quits.
Yeah.
But it's not how I'm built.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Resilience Show. I'm here in Texas in our home studio. We've had a really great lineup of veterans lately, and I'm really excited for this one because Denny Giamazzo is not only a U.S. Army Infantryman and combat veteran, but he's just crushing it in life right now. And as I got introduced to my friend to his story, and as we looked into his background, realized, man, he is like one of the just models of what we claim on the show resilience to be. He's just an incredibly resilient dude who his life started off with a bad hand, and he's in an amazing place today because of his personal resilience and just overcoming. And so want to really dig into his story and share with you his lessons of resilience, and then also point you to the great things he's doing because he has an amazing show as well and a new book out that we want to promote today. So Denny, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, brother. Excited to be here. It's only my second time in Texas, but enjoying it.
Oh man, most people come and they don't go back.
Yeah.
But you're in Tennessee now.
Yeah, I'm in Nashville now. I love it.
That's a good number 2.
Yeah, man. Yeah. After my entire life being in Massachusetts, just outside of Boston,
I wouldn't have
told
you don't have the accent or anything.
No, I like to say I have a Massachusetts accent or a Northeastern accent, but I don't have the thick Boston.
I was being sarcastic. I think you do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was being sarcastic. Yeah.
No, I do have an accent, but some people they either catch on and say, "Well, it's not Boston enough," or but it's there.
Yeah, I've had some good friends from there. It's always fun in the military, and this you meet everybody from all over, and you can that's the one accent that you hear like I know where that guy's from.
Yeah, I can always tell Boston, New York, New Jersey, and then anything in the South, I'm always
if you can't understand them, like what did that guy even say? Like that's Louisiana. That was me.
All right, all right.
Yeah, man, I want to jump right in. So. First of all, like you have an incredible story. Congrats on the new book, Wired for Action. We're going to have it in the show notes below, guys, if you guys want to get a copy. I don't know when this is airing, but I could tell you that we're just 2 days away from Veterans Day. Was it yesterday? Yesterday was Veterans Day. So it dropped yesterday. This will probably be like a week delayed. So it's still fresh on the shelves. And if you want to, help Denny and support a warrior getting on those bestseller lists, you want to be in that first window, that first week, 2 weeks of getting a book. So go on Amazon or wherever books are sold and get a copy, and we'll have the links in the show notes below. But incredible story. Like I said, I want to jump right in. You kind of started life fighting. I mean, you're born prematurely. You lost your mom. You never met your dad. You grew up in foster care. Tell us about from birth to.
Yeah, man. Straight out of the womb, 2 months early. Had to have tubes in my chest. My mom, when I was born, was on drugs. She was also a prostitute and, doing a lot of things that, we don't promote anymore. Right. But yeah, born early, lived with her until I was about 5 and a half. During that time when I was living with her, she was very physically abusive. Putting my hands on the stove and putting cigarettes out on me. And, like I said, she was selling herself, and that was kind of her work. And so she would leave me alone in our 1-bedroom apartment, and she would go off to do her work. And I would just sit there for days and just wait for her to come home, scrape peanut butter out of a jar to eat, and, drag the chair over to the sink to get water when I was thirsty. And But yeah, that was kind of the start with her, was just physical abuse, neglect, being left there. I don't remember being born early, but I was only about 2 pounds when I was born. You could hold me in one hand, and tubes and, all of that. But right away, man, it was on.
Born into the fight.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
And it really was at that young age, man, of just being 5 years old, 5.5 years old, of being like, all right, like, this is what it is, and just time to suck it up and deal with it. I don't really love that term, right? Suck it up. But when you don't know any better, you don't even think it's hard.
Well, you think it's normal.
Yeah.
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 I know a lot of people that had like childhood trauma like that. And by the way, trauma is not always physical. It could just be the environment. Like abuse environment, a neglected environment for a kid is extremely traumatic. Not being physical touch, physical presence, physical love, like that is extremely traumatic to a child, because we were created to be in community, and we were created to have a mother and father that nurture us and love us. So that is extremely traumatic to children. And everyone I've spoke to that had that experience had these early childhood memories that healthy children don't, to where they remember things, and people hear the story and like, there's no way you remember that. And it's like, yeah, actually you do, very vividly.
Yeah.
Do you have any of those kind of memories from?
Oh man, I can remember the smells of the apartment. I can remember like just the feel of the sofa, and like just that hard wooden chair that I would just sit in. Cause like I said, she'd be gone. I would drag that chair, and I would just stare out the picture window into the street. And it was a rough neighborhood. I would just stare into the street. There was a walkway that came in front of the apartment, and steps that came up in, and I would just stare at it and wait for her to come home. And I'm in my tighty whities, right? I'm only 5 years old, and we didn't have anything. So just waiting for her to come home. And like you said, we're built for that connection. We're born for that. And early on, I remember just feeling like, I wasn't really that afraid for myself, but I was afraid for her. And I read about that in the book where, it was normal. Like you said, this is just what mom did. She disappeared. I did my thing. It was scary. It was cold sometimes, but I was really always worried about her, and like, where is mom? What's she doing? And why doesn't she want me to go with her? Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, but yeah, no, I remember so many things from probably starting at like 4, but to that point, I told you about my hand on the stove and her burning me with cigarettes and stuff. Those memories were suppressed until about 7 years ago. My aunt ended up adopting me when I was about 10. And so my sister is really my cousin, which we're getting confusing here. But my sister told my ex-wife about the physical abuse, about the cigarettes and the, burning my hand on the stove. And when she initially brought it up, my ex-wife, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't even remember that. And we were driving in my truck at the time, and probably 3-4 minutes went by, and it was like a light switch went off, and I remembered it vividly. I remembered her telling me, like, don't you dare move your hand or I'll hold it there longer. Right. Yeah. So like, there are some things that we suppress, and, through certain realizations or triggers, will come back. But, there are so many things I remember that are vivid from that age.
Yeah. The limbic system in the human brain's incredible, and it'll suppress those things to protect you, but they're there. Yeah. And they can be accessed. Yeah. Primarily it can be accessed to your body's ability to protect itself. Absolutely. And so it's just incredible. I didn't plan on asking you this. It's kind of blind ask. I don't know I don't even know your position on this, but you probably know that I'm a pretty strong person of faith. Sure. And I have to imagine, like, being in an environment alone, like, was there ever an innate sense of, and I don't know where you are in your faith, but was there ever an innate sense of like, you're alone, but like God's like there with you?
Yeah, no. And like yourself, I'm a believer. I'm probably not as active as you are, but I'm sure we share a lot of the same beliefs, if not most. But yeah, there was always a sense of like, security. And I think that's why, like I said, I didn't spend a lot of time fearing for myself. Yeah. I was always worried about her. And, I had my moments where I would get scared, and, I'm alone. It's dark. The lights are turned off because she didn't pay the bill. I'm hungry. So yeah, I had moments of that, but I feel like I've always kind of just had this attitude that, because I have always believed, and I've always kind of had that attitude where, you know, things might not be going great right now, but, you know, there's a plan in place. And, you know, it's that faith, I think, that helps keep us, you know, grounded in what it is we're looking to do and where we're looking to go, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you tell your story, and I just think like of a kid, you know, you being alone, and I'm like, you know, the Bible says so clearly that God's near the brokenhearted, and and we think we're alone. A lot of times we're not, and He's right there with us. And I can imagine, you know, as a kid not being able to comprehend that, but having that presence of maybe not an earthly father and mother, but a heavenly Father being there.
And I think it really hit me when I was like 5.5. I got put into foster care. Because eventually the state kind of caught on to how my mother was treating me and what was going on. And so I was placed in the foster care around 5.5. And I had, you know, most kids you talk to, their foster, you know, experience was terrible, right?
Right.
Physical abuse, sexual abuse, you know, you name it. I think it's something like 82 or 84% of kids who go into the foster care system experience some kind of abuse or trauma while they're there.
Right.
Mine was the opposite. I have goosebumps already because my foster mom was the best. She was literally an angel. And she was the first person to really show me, you know, what love looked like, what love felt like, to cook meals that tasted great. She took me to the store to buy clothes that I liked. I can remember her buying me this Batman t-shirt I wanted to wear every single day. She's like, Denny, I got to wash it. But no, that was kind of like, when I really started, when I realized, you know, that things weren't normal, right? Things with my mom weren't normal at all.
Yeah.
It was when my foster mom brought me into her environment, and she was the first person to show me what love looked like.
Was there a father there in that environment?
There was, yeah. Okay. So she had a husband, and she also had 2 daughters of her own. They were older. I think at the time, they were maybe early 20s. And they lived there. They lived in the apartment upstairs. So yeah, and actually her daughter, unfortunately my foster mom passed away, but her daughter, I was just texting her yesterday, just keeping in touch. And but yeah, no, it's things don't stay bad forever, right?
Yeah, the season. Things come in seasons.
Absolutely.
Now, your biological mom died as well. So your foster mom and your biological mom.
Yeah. So my biological mom died when I was about 10 from AIDS. She contracted AIDS from, I believe, heroin, sharing needles. But that's eventually how she passed. Never met my father, knew who he was or where he was or any of that. But my foster mom, we were close all the way until she passed away 7 years ago. Almost 8 years ago. This spring will be 8 years.
Did she raise you all the way till you left for the military?
No, she raised me until my aunt eventually adopted me. But because her and my aunt got along so well, there was a point real quick when I was about 10 or 11 when my aunt was going through some health problems, and rather than, you know, give me up to another foster home, my foster mom actually took me back. So I went back to her for a year when I was like 10, 11. So she just ended up being, you know, just a part of my life forever.
Yeah.
She was at my high school graduation. She was at my wedding. She was at, when I got home from Afghanistan, she was there. So she just was present.
That's amazing.
She was the best. So yeah.
Did you have a father figure growing up?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. So my aunt, when I first moved in with her, she adopted me. She had a boyfriend, but never liked him. He never took an interest in me, and I never really cared to, you know.
I love you speaking that from what you know, like from, you know, writing Wired for Action, the speaking and stuff you do. I mean, you really speak from a position of like leadership and masculinity. Like, how impactful do you think that is in a child's life to have a father figure around him?
Oh man. Well, I can tell you what the impact is of the absence of a father.
Yeah.
And that's just a lot of confusion, a lot of pain. For me, you know, not having a father, I looked to my uncle, which was my mother's brother. But he was basically a spitting image of my mother, you know, drug addict, alcoholic, and he was very physically abusive to me. So he would, you know, I was his sparring buddy, but, you know, he would punch me in places where my shirt covered. So that way when I went back to foster care or back to my aunt's. You couldn't see the bruises. You couldn't see anything. But eventually I took care of that problem when I was about 13. I was a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. And I just teed off on him and hurt him really bad. And there was a lot of blood. But eventually I just snapped from being abused. And sometimes bullies just need it. I have no regrets over it. I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
We never talked about it again, and he never tried to hit me again. So it worked. But aside from that, you asked about a father figure. I do like to talk about my grandfather.
Yeah.
Because I hated him as a kid, but as an adult, when he passed away 7 years ago, we were very close. He was very abusive growing up, not physically, but mentally. Just say the worst of things and rip the apartment to shreds, throw newspapers, rip cabinets off the walls, and just very violent growing up. So I hated him. I didn't like being around him, but I spent a lot of time with him as a kid. And it was either that or it was like we were at Coney Island in Worcester. Worcester people will know what that is. Mm-hmm. It's famous like hot dog place in our city. We went every Sunday when he was sober. But it was like two different guys, but a very violent, raging alcoholic. Eventually, when I was older, when I was about 18, he got a DUI, changed everything, stopped drinking. And he ended up being just a very like sober, engaging, great man. Would tell me he's proud of me. He loved when I was deployed. Because when I was deployed, we had a senior enlisted advisor and commander who were SEALs. Mm-hmm. And he was a Navy guy, so he loved that. But he ended up being just the best, just a guy that I really loved and admired towards the end of his life. So I like to talk about him because I've never hated and loved, one person that much.
Yeah.
But
polar opposite extremes.
Yeah. But it went from like, a male figure, if you want to call it that, as a kid that I hated, to somebody that as I got older, I felt like I could lean on in certain things. And he was kind of like, somebody I admired in certain respects. Right. So it was great.
At what point in it seems like this happened young for you, did you realize like, I'm not gonna let my circumstances like define my future. Like I'm gonna take this kind of terrible hand that I got dealt and make the best of it and turn it into something good. A lot of people find that, I think, come to that conclusion maybe when they're 40 or so, but you seem to have found that early on.
I found that very early, man. It was very young that I realized and was able to pick up on like what I don't want, right? Mm-hmm. Like everybody in my family smokes, half of them are drug addicts, the other half are alcoholics or both. Mm-hmm. So I was able to see right away early, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, I think when they grow up in that environment, they kind of see it as normal, but I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just lucky or fortunate or what, but my perspective was like, I saw exactly what I didn't want. And I knew that I wanted to be different. Right. And I always told myself that, I'll be the first person in my family to go to college and graduate. And I was. I always told myself I'll make the most money out of anybody in my family. And I think I've done that. Not that money's everything. Right. But, I just always told myself I'd separate myself as much as I possibly could. And that's not to say I've done that in every respect. I've certainly made my mistakes in certain areas, and we'll get into that. But it was a very young age where I realized that I was maybe just built differently, and wasn't going to tolerate mediocrity or those same patterns falling down into me, and passing that on to ultimately, if I have children, passing that on. Like the shit was going to stop with me, and that's kind of been my attitude. And I've said this before, and it's kind of corny. I don't really care. Michael Jordan was my like idol growing up. I'd like look for quotes of his, like where he talk about like,
Wait, hold on, you're from Boston, and
not that I didn't love Larry Bird.
Okay,
not that I didn't love Larry Bird.
That's like a rival right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Michael Jordan, man, I was obsessed with him. He was the guy in the 90s, and just his attitude and his mentality just. It was so like, it was about sports, right? But I used to take the things he would say and try to figure out ways that I could apply it to life, right? Mm-hmm. When he talks about, I'm not going to think about, missing a shot I haven't taken yet. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, no shit. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's go after it. Let's push through our objectives and see what we can accomplish and not worry about what the outcome's going to be and if we're going to fail. If you have that mentality, you might as well not take the shot, right?
Right.
And like just things like that about hard work and not quitting and, being a good leader and a teammate and,
he talks about all the shots he missed, right? All the accolades he gets for the shots he made, but no one talks about all the shots he missed.
Exactly. And yeah, man, I used to cling to that stuff like gold, man. I loved it, and I would seek it out, and it was just helpful to me as a kid with really no influence.
You see the documentary? I think there's a Netflix documentary of his.
I've seen it like 5 times.
Okay, yeah.
I can't stop watching.
I thought they did a really good job.
Every time.
Netflix was a net.
It was Netflix,
okay,
yeah. The Last Dance.
Okay.
So every time I'm bored or like I don't know what to watch, I'll just watch an episode of that. Like it still fires me up. I'm almost 43 years old, and like, Michael Jordan's like in his 60s now, and he's still firing me up. I'm
not a basketball fan, obviously for obvious reasons. But my son over there, he's a basketball fan. I don't think he realized.
He's a little taller than us.
He didn't realize he's from a short family. But how did all this tie into? Like, where did a desire come in to serve in the military? I mean, growing up foster, you probably didn't have a lot of military people around. Was there?
Yeah. So for me, it was, I never had this. I was always patriotic in the sense, like, I had a tremendous amount of respect for people who served, law enforcement, and, love the country. I've always thought we live in the greatest country in the world. Like, that's never been, it's always been unwavering in that sense. But for me, I didn't have this desire to go serve and, in high school or out of high school or any of that. I initially, after high school, went to college. I did 3 years of college. Basically jerked off the whole time. Like, I was getting good enough grades to not fail out, but I wasn't really finding my purpose, finding myself. It was like, let me get grades that are good enough to pass, and then let me hook up with girls and have fun. Right. And just, that's what college for me was, which is, I think a lot of kids do the same thing. But after my 3rd year, I basically ran out of money, couldn't afford to go back for my 4th year. So I decided I'll take a year off and I'll go get a job, and then I'll go back to school. Right.
Okay, I'm going to pause there because this is maybe not important for our conversation. I think it's important for people to know.
Sure.
People age out of the foster system. And I don't think people realize there's a lot of resources in place in America for people in foster care. I don't think they're the best resources, but there's a lot of money there.
Yeah.
But once you turn 18, you age out of the foster system and you're on your own.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, and at this point too, like my aunt had adopted me. So I wasn't in foster care at that point anyways, but
for those that are, right, you're like,
for those that are, it's like you're out and that's it, and you're on your own.
And the statistics in that are horrible.
Yeah. Because those environments aren't really setting you up for success. They're just, all right, let's get this guy to adulthood, push him through the system. And, I've talked to, people who work in like the Department of Child and Family Services and whatnot. And it's incredible how common it is to see a kid in the foster care system, then go to the juvenile detention system, then go to, the adult prison system, and all these different systems, you see the same name, just matriculating through. It's unbelievably common, according to her.
So you're coming out of adoption, so you're not even.
I was working just at the paint counter at Home Depot after I was like, I'll take a year off, then go back to college. So I took a job at Home Depot, paint counter, just making paint. And one day I was in there and the recruiter walks in and he's just like, just needs some paint mixed. And we start talking, and I never really seriously considered the military, but I'd always, been a little iffy on it. Like, is it for me? Would I like it? Would the structure be good for me? Would the discipline be good for me? Could I, what could I get out of it? And so we started talking, and basically what he did to hook me was he threw all the financial benefits at me, which were, there was a $20,000 enlistment bonus. There was a $20,000 student loan forgiveness. So I had about $40,000 in student loans at the time, and they paid $20,000. So that's basically $40,000, which at the time for me might as well have been $1 million, how broke I was.
Right.
And so he started throwing all that at me. And then I started asking him about, what the jobs were. because at the time Iraq was super heavy. So I remember telling him, like, if I'm going to do this, I want to be in Iraq. I want to do the job. I want to, be in the fight. And he told me about infantry, Army Infantry. And without doing any due diligence whatsoever, I was like, cool, infantry sounds cool. I'll do it. And I think I enlisted a week or two later. I was at MEPS going through it all.
Then when he walked away, did he tell you that he didn't need pain after all?
What?
Then he walked away. He said, "I didn't need pain after all."
Like, no, he got pain. It wasn't a lot. It was a quart.
He was going to job like different places looking for young guys.
Well, I like to say that he spotted an easy target. That's for sure. But I look back at that experience now, and like I said, I didn't do any due diligence. And after I had sworn in, I started hearing about Rangers and Green Berets and all of that. And so I remember going to him, talking to him about those options. Right. But it was a National Guard unit. And so he said, go through basic training, do the training, get infantry qualified through us. It's the same thing, whatever. And then when you get to your unit, if you still want to transfer out, they'll let you. Well, that's not as easy as you think it is. I went through infantry school and all of that. And I'll tell you about that experience in a second.
Yeah.
But I tried to leave my unit after I got there first I wanted to be a Ranger. They was like, no, you have to get released. And they're like, we've paid you a bonus and all this stuff. So no. And then I tried again, but it was about maybe 9 months before the Afghanistan deployment. So they were definitely saying no, because they needed the numbers for that. But I do like to tell the story about when I was in basic training. Yeah. I had just completed all of my infantry training. I completed basic training, then infantry school. And it was about 12 days before Christmas. And we're doing all our breakdown stuff. We're cleaning the equipment and getting ready to turn it all in. We're cleaning the weapon systems, all that stuff. And my drill sergeant comes in and says, hey, you got to go to dental. And I'm like, for what? He's like, well, you're on the list. You have to go get your wisdom teeth taken out. So I said, okay, I'll go get my wisdom teeth taken out. I get to the dentist and they say, all right, we're going to start with your right side. We're going to pull this one. Come back Monday. This is a Friday. Come back Monday. We'll pull the left one. So I said, okay. Well, by Sunday afternoon, this one was infected. The infection was basically spread through my whole throat. My throat was like just bulging. And like when I just went to the touch, it was painful. It felt like I was getting like needles poked in my throat. That's why I have the scar here now. So eventually what happens is I go to the ER Sunday afternoon, and they do an MRI. I have this infection called Ludwig's. And if it goes untreated, the infection can be deadly. It can spread through your throat, go up to your brain, and it can kill you. So essentially what they did is they pulled me into surgery right away. They cut me open over here. I woke up about 12, 14 hours later with a dressing just right here. The infection, I had drain here, and a drain over here, and a trach. And the infection was just draining onto this dressing, all green pussy shit. And it was quite the experience. I was in the ICU for about 12 days. I had 2 different surgeries and I almost died twice.
Jeez, just going through boot camp.
Just going through boot camp, man. And what drove me nuts about it was this was in December. My unit was mobilizing for Iraq in March. And so with this going on, I get to my unit finally in February and I'm talking to my first sergeant. And he's like, I had like a dressing here because the trach was still open and it was bleeding through and it was showing on my tan shirt. Yeah. And so he saw the blood and he goes, what's up with that? So I showed him and he's like, is that fucking thing still open? And I was like, yeah. He's like, you're not going anywhere. He's like, you're not going to Iraq. So I still thought I was going. Yeah. So he basically squashed that. So I missed the Iraq deployment in 2007. Okay. But I was supposed to go. And then a few years later went to Afghanistan. But that was kind of the start to my military career was, basic training and then almost dying from this random infection. Yeah, from getting your wisdom tooth pulled out. Getting military dental is probably as dangerous as Afghanistan or Iraq. Yeah. Some of my friends would joke around about that. They're like, that's worse than anything you could have experienced on a deployment. Yeah. I think
So we get, a lot of guys on the show who, have different jobs in the military, but I think it's really noteworthy to talk about like the process of Army Infantry, because it's different. A lot of most jobs in the military, you go to boot camp or basic training, and then separate to boot camp, basic training, you go to your job training. But the Army is indifferent in such that if you join as an infantryman, you go to a different boot camp.
Yeah, it's just, they call it one station unit training, so OSUT. And your program isn't broken down the way, 9 weeks of boot camp, then your schooling. It's all, put together together basically. So your boot camp and your infantry school is just all one, conjoined program.
How long is that?
That was 16 weeks, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
Or just around 16 weeks.
So when you graduate Army boot camp, you essentially graduate Army boot camp / infantry.
Yeah, you're infantry qualified. By the end of it, you've completed all like the requirements to be an infantryman and that job title. Yeah, and all of that. So,
yeah, I think it's interesting.
It is. I think, to the best of my knowledge, it's the only MOS that's built that way.
Yeah, in any branch of service. I think,
really?
Yeah, I don't think any other branch of service does that.
Yeah, there is like a separate infantry school. So say if you're a non-infantry and you transfer over, there is an infantry school, a program that's maybe, I don't know, it's like 8 weeks or something like that. Yeah. I forget. But there is a separate way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. So get your unit, and then eventually later on you get to deploy.
Yeah. So when I couldn't go to Iraq, basically what I did was I made myself fully available to my unit and said, hey, send me to every school you can find. My goal at that time was to get promoted to sergeant as fast as possible so that when I did deploy, I was the team leader. I'd be in a leadership position. And so I did that. 2010, we went to Afghanistan, Ghazni province. And this was kind of not weird, but it was a little bit different than your conventional deployment, right? Because what they did was they took our company and basically every company from our battalion, and they took us in platoon size elements and they spread us out all over Afghanistan in different provinces. Okay. So our 31-man platoon went to Ghazni province, and we were part of a provincial reconstruction team. And basically that team goes into the province, different villages in the area, and they assess the needs of that village.
Like 2011?
2010, 2011. Yeah. Yep.
Which is a very rough time.
Yeah, so 2010 it was, yeah. It became rougher as we got into like the spring months and stuff, but
it's for context for those listening, it's the backstory is it's when the ROEs really kind of made it downstream from the White House, and that's about the time the Taliban got really emboldened from very weak ROEs, rules of engagement from the Obama administration. So now the Taliban's completely emboldened. Our troops are handcuffed. One of the worst deployments I know of is 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines in Sangin Province, Afghanistan. It's
was that 2010?
2011.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's just one of the roughest deployments I heard of. But I mean, to me, like watching all this happen, it was, President Obama takes over and they change the rules of engagement. And now our troops are essentially like working as policemen with lawyers watching their every move, and the Taliban completely emboldened. So by 2010, 2011, you guys are on the ground dealing with that.
Yeah, man. And it's funny you talk about rules of engagement because, and I'll say it now, I probably wouldn't have said it a long time ago, but when I got submitted for my combat infantry badge, in my sworn statement, I say in there, I fired warning shots. Warning shots weren't authorized. So the guy who was processing my combat infantry badge was like, hey, you got to take that out of there. So I had to like remove it because it was against the rules of engagement. But think about that as it pertains to what you just said. Not being able to fire a warning shot at, a guy on a scooter with, weapons strapped to him that's basically heading in the direction where we have guys moving. Yeah. I mean, I should have shot him.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, a few years later, you could have. And the numbers reflect it, right? The numbers of the KIA on the battlefield. This, I have it in my book. I break down the actual numbers of as the rules of engagement change between President Bush, President Obama, and President Trump. I lay out the numbers of KIA and wounded in action, and it's staggering. The result, the kind of product of how those rules of engagements translates to. Yeah. So it's you're in danger, and not only in danger of that, but how many guys there during that time frame did you see get prosecuted, or charged for war crimes when they were just firing warning shots or doing something they felt their life was in danger or their friends' lives were in danger.
Yeah, I mean, especially now looking back at that, I'm thinking to myself, like, thank God he came to me to take that out of there. He probably could have, I don't know, if he wanted to be he
could have, yeah.
So that's good that he didn't, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, back to like what our mission was. And here's the thing, our mission as a provincial reconstruction team, the infantry guys were the security for that element.
Right.
So we would essentially, we'd use imagery and different things, different technology to kind of get an idea of the area. We'd understand what the SIGACs looked like, what contact in that area looked like, and how likely it was. So we always did our homework there. And then we would essentially go into the village, secure it, make sure it was good, bring that team in, and then essentially secure their exfil out of the village. We didn't have an infantry mission where we're like, yeah, let's go kick indoors. Let's go, that's just not what we did. We certainly took contact, and, we were able to do our job as infantrymen at times, but, just for context, that really wasn't what we were looking to do. But there is one mission I like to talk about. And the reason I like to talk about it is because it provides me so much perspective. This one particular day, we went to Wagez in Ghazni province, Afghanistan, and it was just a nice day, man. It was kind of like I felt like it was gonna be a cakewalk. Mm-hmm. This was an area where like we had been shot at before, so it could have been hot, who knows? But I just had it in my head like it's gonna be an easy day, right? Our job was to go assess a building, see if it could be used as a school for kids, and then assess this exfil route for the backside of the village because we thought it'd be safer.
Right.
We ended up doing an impromptu key leader engagement in a nearby village that I don't think we had ever gone into before. So all the leadership got together, decided how we were going to infill the village, how we were going to set up security, Overwatch, all of that stuff. And this is the part that provides me perspective. My platoon sergeant, who's now my best friend, my platoon leader, Mike Mondello, also a good friend, they call me over and they say, hey, Denny, we're going to set your truck up here with a sniper team. So I had a sniper, a spotter, my truck, me, a driver, and a gunner. We're going to put you up here as Overwatch. It wasn't a sniper position at all. There was no concealment or anything, but gave us a really good view of infill for the village. And so they put me in charge of this element, and I was pissed because typically my job was to secure movement on the ground, and that's what I enjoyed doing. I loved being on the ground. I liked putting guys in position and making sure that things were all good and being on the radio and, just moving. Yeah. Now I'm stagnant in an Overwatch position with my truck and a sniper team. And I kind of just felt like a babysitter. Not the case, but, my leadership put that trust and faith in me to, be in charge of that element. And that's how I should have looked at it and how I look at it now. But we're about 45 minutes into this mission. They go into the village. They're conducting their key leader engagement. I'm in charge of the Overwatch. And the sniper sees movement on a building near our truck, one of our trucks that was facing into the village. And I go to get him on the radio, couldn't get him on the radio. So I start walking towards his truck. I realized that my vehicle, I must have moved and hit the knob and changed the channel. I was on the wrong channel. So I'm about halfway, about maybe 70 yards, 80 yards from my vehicle to his. So I'm about halfway there. I realized that I'm on the wrong channel. I get them on the radio. They saw the movement on the rooftop, so we're good. All good. I turn around, I start walking back to my vehicle. And a few seconds later, I just hear bang. And I could feel it on the ground. So I'm like, okay. Right away, I had never had an RPG shot in my direction or anywhere near me before, but right away I knew what it was, just based off of the sound, the echo it made. So right away, I'm in an open position. I started scanning, looking for targets. There's nothing out there, whatever. My position just started getting lit up. I'm in the open and I have rocks hitting me, dirt hitting me, the snaps, the cracks, that. So right away, I just get up, I sprint back to my vehicle. I'm behind my vehicle and the sniper position that's right next to my vehicle is just getting lit up. Something I say all the time is, those guys, they were only behind like a small dirt mound. And I say that, the fact that those guys are alive is amazing to me because I watched the rounds just impacting all around them and them just with their head down. And like, I just don't even understand how they're here, but obviously I'm glad they are. But eventually things kind of settled down, and our snipers kind of regained their position, their footing. And he says to me, "Hey, I see some movement in that building over there." And I knew, he just pointed to it. I knew which one it was. And he said, "Can I put a couple rounds in it?" And he had a 50 cal Barrett sniper rifle. I was like, "Go ahead, man, do it." And so he just put maybe 5-6 rounds into that building where he thought he saw movement. And again, rules of engagement. We're supposed to go sweep that building now.
Right.
We didn't. Yeah, he put some rounds in there. And then eventually, I didn't know this at the time, but that RPG that was fired in the beginning was essentially your cue for a complex attack. Right. So when that went off, we got lit up, and then so did they in the village. So they, this whole time that we're being engaged and fighting back, they're also fighting. And I didn't know that until things started to settle down. They could hear the Barrett going off. So they obviously knew we were being engaged as well. But I was finally able to communicate with them and knew that they were in contact. And eventually they were able to make their way out. We helped secure that exfil with our Overwatch and whatnot. They mount back up, and then we end up trying to leave. And we're leaving the village through the backside of the village. And as we're leaving, our convoy just continuously just getting lit up again. They just keep shooting at us and shooting at us. And I told you my senior enlisted and commander were both SEALs. And so we had a team with us that day from SEAL Team 8 that was out with us. And I remember him jumping on the radio and just being like, to me, and just saying, "Hey, put a team together, come link up with us." They had already dismounted and started chasing these guys. And so they tell me, put together a team. So I'm running to vehicles, pulling dismounts. I set the Overwatch up because I had a good sight line into the village and kind of looking down. So I set up my sniper to pull Overwatch. And so again, just pulling dismounts out. Me, my buddy Denner, and 3-4 of the guys, we just started chasing up to link up with Senior Chief. And eventually we did catch up to them. But you know, by that time I got to him, we ended up being a rear security element, and the guys from SEAL Team 8 and a bunch of our guys, my buddy Mike and my other buddy Mike that I mentioned earlier, they just were on foot chasing these dudes. And that turned into a 3.5 hour sporadic engagement that just, again, I thought it was going to be an easy day. And so much perspective just learned that day from, you know, me thinking it was going to be easy and it wasn't, from me being upset that I was placed in an Overwatch position when in reality it was really leadership showing faith that I can control that element. Right. Especially when things got hard. And so, yeah, just so much perspective gained that particular day. And so that's typically what I talk about when I talk about anything, you know, kinetic.
Did you ever catch those guys or?
No. It ended up, like I said, we weren't really a kinetic element. That was not what we were there for. Yeah. So I think we would have kept chasing them. However, it was getting dark.
Yeah, and you don't know where you're chasing them to.
Exactly, and that's just it. So, yeah, a lot of different things happening, and I think eventually it was just we were falling into the darkness, and just with the element we had. I think if we just had the infantry guys, we might have just set up shop and stayed, because they wanted to. But just with the element we had female leader engagers, leadership engagement members in there, and you know, people that weren't really trained for that at all. But yeah, that, again, and just generally speaking, that wasn't what we were there for. But it would have been great too.
Yeah, it's always fun. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing, right? Your predatory instincts kick in. You want to, you know, there's been many people that have always say never be in a hurry to never be in a hurry to get yourself in trouble. Yeah. And, you know, that primal instinct comes in and you can chase somebody right in a hornet's nest.
Yeah, man.
And, so you gotta be real cautious of that instinct.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that deployment you get back, and like many of the warriors, you battled some of the.
I battled big time, man. And it wasn't even, for me, it wasn't that stuff. Like for me, and I always preface this the same way. When I say like for me, being shot at wasn't, it didn't scare me in the sense, like in the moment it did, but it wasn't something I looked back at and was like, this bothers me.
Right.
It was, for me, it was like an adrenaline rush in the same way that being on a roller coaster is an adrenaline rush. Right. But for me, it was like seeing people killed, seeing the body in just unnatural state. And, you know, there was a time where I was on the fob and just getting a cortisone shot in my shoulder, and I'm walking out of the aid station, and these trucks come flying in. There's 2 of them. Each truck has 4 dead Afghan National Army soldiers on it, and they're just blown to shit, like just blown to shit. And so we're pulling the bodies off the back of the trucks, and you know, one guy, I look down, his face is gone. I can see his spine going up to the back of his head. That's it. And then there was another guy. We go to pick him up, and my buddy's got him by underneath the back of his arms. And I went to go pick up his legs, but his legs have been shattered like almost evenly right here below the knees. So when I picked up his legs, they came up, but his body stayed down. So I ripped his calves, and it was just like, that's the stuff that bothered me when I got home, because I had blood all over me, and just the uniform was just done.
Seeing human bodies mangled and lifeless is unless someone's seen that before, it's a really very unnatural thing.
It's wild, and to move the bodies and touch them, and so weird, and that's the stuff that bothered me. Not so much, you know, explosions or, you know,
the risk.
The risk was fun. I mean, I think that's why guys keep doing it for so many years, right? The risk is, you know, that's part of it. It's just some of the stuff you see that doesn't go away. That's the stuff that bothered me when I first got home, and it was, for me, it was probably 8 months straight of just drinking.
That's what I was going to ask. How did it manifest?
Oh, yeah.
It manifested in like anxiety, depression, panic attacks. Like, what was the manifestation physically for you?
It was depression, anxiety, and alcohol.
So, yeah, it's used alcohol to numb those things.
Huge.
Right?
And at the time, too, like I said, I was getting cortisone shots when I was in Afghanistan on my shoulder. And so when I got home from Afghanistan, I had 2 shoulder surgeries. So I'm just sitting there, you know, broken anyways, and just drinking all the time.
That was before the Wolverine stack. Now you got BP 157 Wolverine
Love
stack.
Stuff. Love that stuff.
Not tearing yourself up. Cortisone like tears your joint, your tendons up, kind of roads them.
I had 4 of them in my right shoulder, 2 in my right elbow, 2 in my left shoulder.
Yeah.
It that's just on the one deployment.
Yeah.
It was, but yeah, man, alcohol was my way of coping. And eventually, you know, my ex-wife had enough. And she was like, it's time for you to go talk to someone. And I remember getting there and talking to.
Was there any kids in the mix?
No kids.
No kids. Okay.
No kids. Just me and my ex-wife at the time. And I remember talking. I remember walking in and talking to the girl at the vet center, who was great, by the way. And you know, they don't start with, you know, tell me about Afghanistan. Tell me about, you know, this experience or that experience. It's, you know, what was your childhood like? So now we're starting to unpack shit that has nothing to do with the military, but here I am, a combat veteran, thinking I'm going to the vet center to talk about that. And now we're unpacking just the childhood trauma, which bleeds into, you know, service, and then that trauma. And it turns into this cocktail of emotion that just had me like self-destructing, basically.
Well, yeah, because you go in the military, your cup's already full. I mean, look, we at Mighty Oaks Foundation, which you know, I know you had some friends come through and talk, and we talked about it before, but most people that I see dealing with PTSD and combat trauma at a significant level, right? People dealing with it at a lower level and then they bounce back real quickly, but at a significant level, there's a huge association with childhood trauma or difficult childhoods, and it creates a predisposition. And I always describe it like, this cup. If this cup was like, all the stuff, right? Your birth, your abandonment, your mom, your dad dealing with the abuse, and your cup just keeps getting full, and now it's already at the top. Yeah. And you throw a combat on top of it, and it's going to come spilling over, right? Yeah. And so you already just like. So that's really, I think wise of therapists to start there to kind of. Yeah. What was the state of your predisposition to handle what you experienced in your deployments?
Yeah, and I think that that is probably the best place to start, because and one of the things I've picked up on just being in this world now where I'm sharing publicly, I got the book and friends with guys like Terry and Nick and whatever. Yeah.
Terry's so awesome, by the way.
Yeah, Terry's the man. I was on the phone with him on the way here.
He's one of my favorite dudes, man.
Yeah. But just like everyone, like almost everyone that serves in the military, especially guys in the soft backgrounds, what I'm seeing is like they've all been through something before, the military even was a thing for them. Yeah. And I'm no different. I probably have more shit in my head from my childhood than I do from the military. But again, you mix it up and they're almost intertwined. And that cup does just spill over, man. You're right.
But when you start identifying those things, and it's like, anything you repair, you start at the foundation, so you start really working on the foundation of those things. And without combat, without the anxiety and depression, you probably would have never addressed those things till later on in life. And now you're actually, okay, let's diagnose this thing and let's get to the root problem. So what was that like for you? Like, once that diagnostics, right? Now, okay, this isn't just combat. There's a root problem here. I'm an adult now. I have to address these things.
Yeah, I think it's two-pronged. There's areas where I've addressed it and I've done really well at addressing it, especially like PTSD, depression, anger. Anger, man, I'm a chill guy now, but I haven't always been. Yeah. And so, those things I've done a really good job of dealing with and, found healthier coping mechanisms for, where I continued for a long time and even probably up until recently with just hours of therapy gotten better. But for me, it's always been relationships and fostering meaningful relationships with women. And that's...
What do you mean by that, fostering meaningful relationships with women?
Like... So because I think of, and I've gone off, again, hours and hours of therapy, but, because of the way my mother was, for me to like trust a woman and really believe that they like me and love and care for me is hard for me to
It's really hard to accept love, right?
Yeah, it's like, yes, for me to accept it, and then that in turn makes it hard for me to give it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. It's like I could feel that as you say it. I have a very difficult time accepting being loved. Like I can't believe it. Like I reject it.
Like, what does this good woman want from me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What can I give her? Except maybe like I can provide financially, right? Mm-hmm. But outside of that, like I've always just kind of had that in my head that, outside of, if I don't provide financially or like,
circumstances change.
Yeah. Like she's not going to love me if I don't do this trip somewhere or like buy her this or, build the house or, name the thing. It's all in my head though. And I know it's in my head, but I still can't stop myself and from making like, just those poor decisions of now I just date the wrong ones, or I was dating the wrong ones. Mm-hmm. I think I found a good one down here, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. But
she's listening.
I know, man. She'll see this. And she knows my whole life story now because she's
read the book.
She's right. She's just got it on her Kindle. Yeah. But that's part of the thing that I just continue to work on, and I will continue to work on it because ultimately I still do want a family. I do want to be in a good relationship with a good partner. But that's going to take a lot of work on my end.
Yeah, there's a lot of healing that has to be done to be able to accept that love. And yeah, I can relate because I think your childhood is a little more extreme than mine, but I grew up, abandonment from day one, and ended up living alone since I was 15, and grandparents raised me, bounced back and forth from not foster, but from mom to dad, and so just a lot of rejection, a lot of abandonment, and you carry that in every relationship moving forward. Yeah, because
it's the people that have. It's the people that have supposedly the people that were supposed to love you the most hurt you the most.
Right.
And so now you're in this position of vulnerability again in a relationship where, you're married even. And, you still don't believe that you're not going to get let down. And that they're not going to leave. They're not going to reject you. And, for me, that manifested in relationships, especially my marriage, where if she criticized me for the slightest thing, for me, that was just rejection.
Yeah. 100%.
I wasn't good enough. She hated
me. A little bit of rejection feels like it magnifies.
Yeah. And that's what would cause me to have like these angry outbursts that, were just unacceptable. And now that's basically all I work on in therapy now is like relationship stuff. Right. Because that's just become my priority. I'm 43 years old next month. And, having a family hopefully is a goal that hopefully that comes to fruition for me. And that's what I want. So it's time to, really work on it and, heal. And so that's all I talk about.
It's a foundational thing. Cause from the beginning we talked about when we first started talking, right. You're wired to have relationship and community and nurturing and to be loved. Right. We're created that way. And so you haven't had it from day one, and here you are 3 years later, you're still working on that piece.
Yeah, and believe me, man, it's like anything else. I want to quit on it sometimes. Sometimes I just want to say, screw it. Like, I'm going to be alone forever. I'll be alone forever. And I know that I can be okay being alone.
You tell yourself that, but it's not your best.
No, you're right. And I'll say that, like, when I did let my guard down for several years and I was married, I probably functioned as high at as high of a level as I ever have.
Right.
Because I do think there's something to be said for having a good woman there supporting you. And I did have that for a long time. And ultimately, Denny came out and rejected it. So it's just something that needs to be addressed, acknowledged, and continue to be worked on.
Yeah. What's some tips for that? For me.
Tips? Oh, man.
I'm sure for everybody else listening, but
no,
I'll take them too.
The best thing I've done is surround myself with this network of just like-minded guys like Terry, guys like Nick, guys like Nick Freitas. Nick Freitas, man, he gave me some of the best advice I've gotten.
Bro, he's so awesome.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
I had him as a guest on my podcast, and, we talked about legacy. And, my last name, Giamazzo, that's not mine. I created it. When I was adopted, I was given a name. I didn't like it because of where it came from, the man who it came from. So when I got married, I took my ex-wife's name. Then when we got divorced, I had to give it back, basically. And so I came up with my own name. And
you legally changed it and everything?
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't have found something more Italian sounding? So sounds like a mafia movie, man.
No, so I did because I don't know who my father is.
Yeah.
I did the DNA test. I did all of them.
Right.
And they all came back that I'm basically 51% Italian.
Right.
And so my ex-wife's last name was an Italian name and began with a G. So everybody was like calling me Denny G. And so I knew that I wanted another G name.
Yeah.
And so just doing some research, I came up with that. And I was like, you know what? And Nick Freitas said this to me. You can't control what happened before, but you are in a unique situation where you have the opportunity to create your own legacy moving forward. And I want to say after I had him on the show, it was like a week or two later, I officially changed my name.
That's pretty cool, man.
Because it was time for me to own something that can be mine and something that I can pass down. Because, not to feel sorry for myself in any way, but what was given to me was trash.
Yeah.
It was time to do my own thing.
Yeah. That's a lot of accountability in that, right? You have this new thing that it's new opportunity, and you can do something really good with it. And a lot of accountability comes with that, doing it well.
Absolutely, man. And
especially if you're going to pass it down.
Yeah. And that's my hope. My hope is to pass it down.
Yeah.
Like I said, I know I'm 43 next month, but I'm fortunate enough to date younger, and I can still have a family, and I'm hopeful for
43
that.
is not old anymore.
No,
Used to be.
yeah, I feel great. I feel better than when I did at 25. Maybe it's the BPC.
Yeah, I'm 50 and I'm training for this Sunday I have the UFC Fight Pass match. It was my 50th birthday present to myself to come out and compete. And honestly, like, I feel amazing. Yeah. I have 25-year-old pro guys that are pro athletes that are training with me every day, and I'm hanging with them and running through most of them, and I feel great. Like, awesome. I feel like I've competed at a real high level. I feel amazing. So yeah, it's I think a lot of it's like knowledge of lifestyle, how to eat well, how to work out well. We didn't know any of this stuff before. Before fat was bad, right? Butter was bad. Now, so I think knowledge is one thing, and then the supplementation. Man, I get stem cell every year. I go down to BioAccelerator in Columbia. Yep. I've had 4 rounds now. I had
a buddy who played in the NFL that just did that.
What's that?
I had a buddy who played in the NFL that just
went
did
down
that.
to Columbia BioX.
Yep.
It's amazing, man. Like so I'm really good friends with Eric Stauffer, the CEO, and I've sent a lot of wounded veteran guys down there for like TBI and stuff. Yeah, it's changed everything for me. I went from you have a calendar age, right? Like how old you are.
Yeah.
So I'd be 50. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And, but my biological age has went down 14 years.
Holy shit!
Because of at a cellular level, because in 4 years or 3 years of stem cell.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
I've knocked 14 years of my biological age.
Yeah, you don't look 50.
Thanks.
Yeah, man. and that is a direct reflection of how you treat your body, right? I get told all the time I don't look 42, and it's the best. I love when people say it. Yeah. I'm like. I had a dude tell me the other day at the gym he thought I was 34. I'm like, dude, I love you. Thank you.
I got 6 grandkids.
Tell me more. Come on.
Yeah. So yes, I never knew I'd have 6 grandkids and been competing on UFC Fight Pass.
That's wild, dude. When is that?
Sunday.
Oh,
Sunday.
Yeah,
Sunday. It's coming Sunday.
In Texas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice, man.
I got to really. I'm really happy about my opponent. I didn't want to compete against another guy my age. I wanted to compete against a tough, active, like competitor. So I got going against this guy Victor Pazos, who's like really great dude, runs an awesome school, competes, coaches and competes full time. It's kind of funny. His promo thing was like, he's kind of really, really kind to me, but he's like, Chad wears like a bunch of different hats. He's a, black belt and retired MMA fighter, and he does this, speaks and writes books. And he's like, he wears all these hats, but he's like, I just wear one hat. He's like, been wearing it for 25 years. Good. So he's pretty confident that, so it's going to be a really good match. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm excited about it. That's what I wanted. I want to compete against a younger, just active guy. Like,
that's what I would want too.
Yeah. I'm doing it for my 50th birthday. I'm not doing it to get back and competing.
Yeah.
So like, to me, if I go compete against another 50-year-old guy, that's a waste of time.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I want to, who's the top, like, what's the marker right now? That's what I want. I want to see where I'm at right now. I want to represent all the old guys that can be cheering.
Yeah.
So I'm going to win, by the way, just so you know.
Hell yeah, you are. So, I love that. That's incredible, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So we went down a rabbit hole, which is fun, but where were we at? We were talking about, essentially we're talking about, coming home and dealing with these foundational things, right? You're dealing with PTSD, but you guys took it from approach to deal with the foundational things.
Yeah.
Which is, for you, started off with your first relationship, your mom, right? And now it's carried forward all these years and their relationships moving forward. And I'm really happy to hear that that's where you focus, because it's an area right now for me in my life, even with all that I do, that I have to focus on too. I have to kind of pause and focus on that as well.
And one of the things we were talking about before we kind of went down the rabbit hole a little bit was, how, like, what I do, right? And that's, again, the network of guys that I have to lean on is incredible. And just having somebody to talk to, like, I told you about George, my buddy George Hayworth, who went through your program. Mm-hmm. And he's one of the guys I lean on the most. He's right in Nashville, or just outside of Nashville. But, that's been the biggest thing for me, is just surrounding myself with a network of guys that get it, that have been there. Like George has been there. And so that's been huge. And just kind of shifting my focus to that and having it be in my primary objective of, this is what I want to get out of life. So it's time to put the work in there. Yeah.
One of the things you've said before is that someone else has had it worse, which is, that's a really good perspective to have. Like, as bad as my situation is, someone out there that has it worse, What's that mantra kind of mean to you? Why do you say it?
It's everything to me.
Yeah.
That mantra is literally everything to me because it's something I came up with early on as a kid. I was telling myself like somebody out here, because I grew up in like a tough area in the beginning in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is a very blue collar city, but it's rough in some areas. So I just always had it in my head that like somebody else has to be having it, has to have it worse, has to be going through something harder, right? And you see it all the time. Like people come back, like so somebody's had it harder, they've come back stronger, and they're doing more with less. Mm-hmm. And again, I said that to myself very young, and I think that helps to shift people's perspective if they can think that way, and it did for me. It kind of gave me the mindset of like, now it's time to take action. It's an opportunity to take action against my pain, my struggles, my objectives, and it's an opportunity to be different. And that's exactly why I named my book Wired for Action. Yeah. Because when you hit those things, those objectives, and shit starts going sideways on you, it's an opportunity to take action. Yeah. And that's really your only option. You can sit there and feel sorry for yourself. You can be, and I think we have a probably pretty good community of guys that probably don't do that very often. But I think your average person will be like, have that why me attitude, and start to get down that path of pity, and
life's hard. We're in a broken world, and we shouldn't be surprised when hardships come. How we respond to it is we can't control the hardships as well. We control how we respond to them.
Yeah, right? there was this another thing that sticks with me a lot is there was this judge in Providence, Rhode Island. His name was Joe Shapiro. He died recently, but he went viral so many times because of like the compassion that he showed for people that came into his courtroom for different reasons. And I remember watching just one of his clips that went viral, and he said in there, as he's letting this guy off of a ticket or whatever it was, life is difficult at best. At best, if you're lucky, life is difficult.
Right.
And that's stuck with me since I heard it maybe 5, 6, however many years ago. Because I think that's the best way to put it is life is difficult at best. Mm-hmm. And that's just the reality of what we face.
Yeah.
But you can take action, and you can, have a substantial, skin in the game and how your life turns out.
Then the show is titled, The Resilient Show. As I go around speak on resiliency, I talk about 4 pillars, mind, body, social, spirit, being mentally tough, right perspective, right attitude, physically being in shape, being, fit, healthy. Socially, you talked about this, surround yourself with the right people. For me, the spiritual pillar is the most foundational one because my faith is the foundation of everything. We've talked a little bit about that. What's that mean to you? I mean, before I actually answer what it means to you, as you're talking, I'm thinking of the title of your book, right? Wired for Action. I believe we were created to be people of action. I don't believe that we were created for a passive lifestyle to sit back and let the world pass us by. We're supposed to be, especially as men.
Yeah,
we're not consumers. We're contributors, and we're hardwired by the Creator Himself for action. Jeremiah 29:11 is a verse I really think of when I say that. Where God says, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. What that verse really boils down to is we were created for purpose, and we were created to take action. And what's your thoughts on as you show by being wired for action, being a person that was created for a purpose, and where's God kind of fit into all that for you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because for the longest time, man, I took about a 10-year break from any type of belief system or faith, and what triggered that for me was being overseas, thinking to myself like, man, everything they're doing, to try to kill me and my friends and allies and whatnot, that's all grounded in their religion and allegedly, right? And so in my mind, I thought to myself at this time, without really knowing much, was look, they have their religion, I have mine, and it's all just confusing to me right now. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know, not that I didn't still have some beliefs in the things that I was taught and whatnot, but for me, it just felt like I'm going to take a break from this. I can't do it. So I did that for about 10 years, and probably about 3 years ago, I just honestly, out of boredom, said, I'm going to read the Bible again. And I started reading the New Testament and just read it through probably 2 or 3 times. And just in reading it and praying every night, I started to feel like, just spiritually just better. I started feeling better about things. I felt like my life started to come back together again, and good things started to happen. And, I feel like, the Bible's the one book where if you take the lessons from it and apply it to your daily life, only good things can happen.
Yeah. I mean, take away the belief system, right? The faith, just a practical application of those principles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Take what the Bible says, apply it to your life, and good things are going to happen for you.
Yeah.
1000%. And that's where, for me, just doing that and seeing it, I kind of realized that it's time to start digging in again with my faith. And, I'm not somebody who goes to church every week or anything like that, but I do still read the Bible and I do still pray. I did go to church a couple weeks ago, my second week here. In
Nashville?
Yeah.
You're in the Bible Belt
It was
now.
in Franklin, Tennessee, yeah. But
Franklin's good. That's a church I could speak at in Murfreesboro.
Okay.
And I speak there a couple of times a year.
Nice.
It's probably amongst my top, favorite churches. Pastor Alan Jackson has become a great friend of mine and kind of a mentor to me. And if you ever get a chance to go up there, yeah, well, I'll be back speaking there again, and we'll hook up and go there. It's a phenomenal church.
Yeah, and even the girl that I've been seeing, right? We've talked about, kind of making that a priority is getting to church every week and getting back into that, and just making faith just generally a priority. Yeah. So that's kind of the path I'm on. I'm, again, reading it still and praying, but it's time to start getting more involved, and that's my plan.
Yeah. I'll pray for you in that too, man.
Appreciate that.
If you ever need anything from me, reach out to me.
Absolutely.
It sounds like some of the guys you're already wired in with is I know them personally. Be solid, Terry and Nick. Yeah. There's some solid believing dudes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You talk about turning your trauma to testimony. Brandon over there, next room calls it takes my mess and makes it a message. It's been speaking, writing books, or all things. By the way, people probably see what I do now and see the public platform. Like, I think that would be something I aspired to do. I actually did not want to do that at all. Like, I want to be as low key. I want to run Mighty Oaks like low key. It just became necessary, right? But what I found is what I didn't want to do, actually, in the process of doing it, was really healing to me. It was healing to me. One is like being able to talk about it, taking the hardships of my life and making, giving it purpose, like taking the things that I think, in a spiritual sense, that my spiritual enemy, the devil, would try to destroy me with, and those things became actually the very tools that I used to be able to help people. It became very, very, very healing for me. And every time I'd see someone benefit from it, even hearing you today, say, "Oh, that guy came through Mighty Oaks and it saved his marriage." Like, I hear that and I'm like, "Oh man, that's awesome." So it became very healing for me. Yeah. How is like speaking and writing books and your podcast? How's that been helpful in your own healing journey?
It's been huge, man. Even just writing the book. I mean, I probably now read and edited and gone through my entire book 100 times.
Yeah.
And each time I went through it, and I relived a lot. I relived a lot, and it gave me so much perspective in terms of, healing through the things that were hard, but then also when I'm writing and realizing like the mistakes that I made, especially in my marriage and different things, reliving that and just really owning it and like, editing it and being like, I was a bad husband. I was a cheater. I was a liar. I was all these things. To call yourself those things and really have to own it, is hard, but it's also healing. And to, again, rewrite and, the experiences with my foster mom and all the great things we experienced together. And then to write about how she died and when she died. And, that was very, very hard, and having to relive that. But anytime you have to relive it and re-experience it, if with the right perspective, it's going to heal you. And for me, just having the public platform with the podcast and now writing the book and doing speaking engagements and, all those things that, the feedback I get from people is just incredible. When I get off the stage from a speaking engagement, I have 100 people come up to me and say, dude, that was amazing. Or like, I can relate, or thanks for sharing, or
isn't it crazy how you could share your story, which is your life's totally separate, different from theirs, but they're able to connect. Like that was like my story. And they're like two totally different occupations, totally different path, but people were able to connect.
Yeah, man. And it was wild. I did a speaking engagement for Team USA football back in March. And after I got done, everybody was coming up saying, thank you. That was good. Whatever. One of the coaches came up to me, like almost in tears in his eyes. I grew up like that, Denny. I grew up in and out of foster care. I lost my mother. I've never met my father. I was like, holy shit. Like, I've met people that have been through things before, but probably not that much of the same. Yeah. Right. And real quick, I do need to, kind of call out a good friend of mine. His name is John Doolittle. He was my commander in Afghanistan. He did 23 years in SEAL teams. Just a phenomenal dude. He was in Boston probably 2 years ago now, year and a half, 2 years ago, when I was thinking about doing the book. I wasn't sure. I had started a manuscript, but I wasn't sure if I was going to go through with it. And he was in Boston for a speaking engagement at one of the bigger colleges there. And we're grabbing dinner and we're talking. And I told him, like, I have the podcast now, but I'm thinking about doing a book. And so, but what was holding me back from doing the book was ridiculous. But I didn't have a special operations background. So I didn't think anybody would want to hear from me, right? I'm not a SEAL. I'm not Marine Recon. I'm not, Green Beret, right? And you look back at the guys who have written books over the last dozen years, what are they? They're all special operations, right? And so I wasn't really sure I wanted to do it, right? Who wants to hear from me?
I was actually interested because you wasn't that. I was like, cool. A solid infantry book, backbone of, warfighting.
And I appreciate you saying that because that's what he said.
Yeah.
He's like, Denny, you still do have, you are a combat veteran, but there's all these other things that are part of your story that make it worthy of being shared. And, you can help a lot of people. He's like, you have to do it. His exact words, but you have to do it.
I agree.
And I don't think without that conversation, I'd be here promoting, my memoir that got published yesterday. It's still surreal to me, to be honest with you.
I mean, the reality is, regardless of what your occupation was in the military, which, by the way, being an infantryman, a combat veteran infantryman's pretty solid feat. Like nothing. It's something to be proud of, and you should be proud of it. And
I am. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the. A lot of people
like your combat infantry badge in your arm. And,
I do. Yeah,
you should. That's
and I got to say this too. A lot of guys talk about the Guard in certain ways, and they joke around and whatever. But man, I love the guys I served with. They were solid. Our leadership was incredible. My best friend Mike Burns. I talked about him earlier. One of the best leaders I ever had. So good. He's actually deployed now. He's a CSM now. He's downrange right now, and just man, I'm grateful for that experience.
Absolutely, man, absolutely. And but to me, like, your story is so much bigger than whatever occupation you had in uniform. Like I said, look, we started where we started this interview at, and where you were to where you're sitting right now. Promoting your podcast and your book, and you're living it out, man. You are a illustration of resilience that people need to hear right now. And it's very important that you share your story, and it's going to help a lot of people. So I'm thankful for you sharing your journey with us here.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that, man. It means the world to me. I've been following you for a bit, and I've liked your stuff for a bit. And when I reached out to you, I wasn't sure you'd get back to me, but you got back to me very quickly. And I can't thank you enough, man, for having me here.
Absolutely. We have a great team. I think Chris and Richie are probably on the other side of that screen there, and everyone 100% agreed you'd be a great fit for the show. So glad we had you on. Yeah. Before we kind of shift, I want to talk about your podcast a little bit. Sure. People, obviously people listening are podcast fans. Yeah. So where could people? What's your show about, first of all?
Yeah, sure. So my show is called Be the Standard. I got to give my buddy Mike credit. He came up with the name. Yeah. When we decided to do a podcast together a couple years ago. It's essentially, we have a lot of veterans on. We talk about, veterans' mental health, standard mental health, fitness, anything to do with motivation and, nutrition, or anything that's basically going to make you a better human being. But a lot of times, people see be the standard, right? That doesn't mean you're perfect every time. That doesn't mean you don't miss, right? Essentially, I came up with our 4 principles of setting standards, creating habits, executing, and then holding yourself accountable, right? And that's essentially just the 4 pillars of the process to being the standard. And so what are your standards? What's acceptable? What's not? What are your habits every day? What are the things you're executing on every day? And lastly, when you set those 3 things in place, are you holding yourself accountable? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're going to be great at it and sometimes you're not. But if you put those 4 things into practice and you use it as, again, kind of like a guide to your own journey of just being the best human being you can, that's kind of what we're about.
Yeah. Outstanding, man. What message do you have to the audience on, living a resilient life, being the standard?
Yeah.
Just that they could walk away with apply right away in their life right now.
Yeah. I mean, my advice to anybody is, look, man, it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be pretty, but I think with faith, grit, and determination, you really can make a lot happen. And, it really does come back to just being the standard in terms of, having that process in place. And your process might look different than mine, but what does it look like when you're functioning at your best, and how do you revert back to that when you fall off? I think that's so important because you're going to fall off. I don't care who you are, whether it's physically at the gym or emotionally or spiritually, whatever the case may be, like, we're flawed human beings at best.
Yeah.
And, we're fortunate enough to be that way. But each time we fall off, again, it's an opportunity to take action, and it's an opportunity to come back stronger and better and, learn from your mistakes. And I've made several mistakes, and some I've made several times.
Yes.
But, I'm as flawed as they come, and I'll just continue to keep working, trying to be the best person I can. And that's my advice to anybody, is just stay on that path of resilience. And that's such a phenomenal word, man.
Yeah. So Eddie sent me this verse the other day, which really applies to what you're saying right now. And I think it's wisdom from resilience. And those who have not read the Bible yet, there's 31 Proverbs, one for every day of the month. And so if you want an easy start to read for getting wisdom from the Bible, you could just read a Proverbs every day. Probably take you 5-10 minutes a day just to read it, and then you meditate on it. But Proverbs is loaded with wisdom, and I think this is wisdom on what you just said in resilience. And again, this is what Eddie sent me. For the righteous may fall 7 times. For the righteous falls 7 times and rises again, but the wicked stumble in times of calamity. Proverbs 24:16. So, we're going to fall over and over again, sometimes make the same mistakes over, but the righteous rise back up.
Absolutely.
And I think you could also say the righteous are the resilient, rise back up.
And it's never too late, man. It's never too late, and you can always be better. I've thought to myself so many different times that, like, look, man, you've ruined a few relationships now. You might want to just call it quits. Yeah. But it's not how I'm built.
No.
I'm just, I can be better.
Yeah. That's you're a resilient dude. You're a resilient dude. You're not a quitter, and you're wired for action. so
we all are.
Yeah, we all are. Yeah. So close out with the book, Wired for Action, available everywhere. Books are sold. We'll have show notes in the bottom. Amazon's usually probably the easiest, and for ranking, it's a good spot to go for ranking for helping you push your sales and get. By the way, guys, when we push books to say help them get on the best, like a bestseller ranking, it's not for a title or accolade. It's because when it gets in those bestseller rankings, then they push it out in the algorithm more. It gets marketed more, and they sell more books, and more people, helps incredible guy that is obviously doing this for good reasons, and it helps get the message out, right? These things are for these are cause driven messages, and it helps get the message out. So you get Wired for Action. What's your we'll end with this. What's your favorite part in the book?
Man, that's a great question. My favorite part of the book is when I talk about my foster mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know why I just picked that, because you kind of hit me with that on the spot. But I think the reason that I love talking about that and I picked that is because, when I rewrote it and rewrote it and reread it and reread it, I don't think I ever didn't cry. Because, she touched me, in so many different ways that were just, she showed me love, man. And I miss her every day.
She's who you're looking for in a wife right now.
She's the best, man. She was the best.
Miss Giamazzo is going to be a reflection of your foster mom, and
that'd be perfect.
Yeah,
that'd be perfect.
That's awesome, man. Well, we have some amazing sponsors for the show. I know you got a lot of great ones as well, and the work you do. But Smith & Wesson Firearms, Vortex Optics, we got Gemtech Suppressor right here, Gators Eyewear, Mighty Oaks Foundation. As you know, your buddy who came through Mighty Oaks supports our military and veteran communities. We talked about Bio Accelerator today, BioPro. We just have some really great sponsors that make this show possible.
Yeah.
And some of them want to say thank you to you. And so we're going to get you hooked up with a Smith & Wesson firearm with the Vortex Optics, get you some Gators Eyewear, some BioPro supplements, which are incredible, by the way. Obviously you work out, so we'll get you hooked up with some BioPro.
Outstanding.
And so we're gonna take care of you. We're gonna give you a Mighty Oak swag bag, some Resilient Show gear, and man, I'm really proud of everything you're doing. So great to meet you in person, and I hope this is just the start of doing some work together.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I can't thank you enough for having me on, and then this stuff's just a bonus, man. I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful that just to be here, and I look forward to the opportunity for us to work together as well.
Right on. Well, we already locked in the same circle of bros.
Yeah,
so,
man. Yeah. Solid group of dudes, man.
Solid. Yeah. I'm thankful for them right now too. So,
yeah.
Well, hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I really hope you'll support Denny and get a copy of his book and, follow his show. If you have not done so, please like this episode, leave a comment in the section for Denny to check out and share it as far and wide as you can. Also, if you're not already part of our Patreon family, join our Patreon. We asking Denny some other kind of life advice. He'll do a Patreon segment. We have tons of awesome behind the scenes stuff on Patreon that we'd love to share with you. And by joining and becoming a Patreon member, it's one of the best ways you could support the show and keep it going. So we have some, I can't say yet, some amazing new news about some of the other stuff we're doing with Resilient Studios. And we're going to be breaking that news, but our Patreon members are going to hear it first. So stay tuned for that. God bless you and stay resilient. See you next week. Hey, what's up, Resilient family? I am so grateful for each of you who tune in every week to hear our episodes. We have such incredible guests and topics that I am passionate about, our team's passionate about, and we could not do it without you. So we're thankful for you. We love you. We appreciate you locking arms with us to be more informed, to become a more resilient community. And I want to invite you to become a tighter part of that community by joining us on Patreon. If you go to our show notes below, you can click the link and get dialed into our Patreon and get extra content weekly. You can join for $15 a month and get behind the scenes footage, get closer access to me. I have monthly Zooms that I'll be doing with some members of the community. And so we'd love to get more involved. Again, go below in the show notes and click the link and join today.